Hey everybody, welcome back to another lesson video. I'm excited to dive into today's lesson. It's about some very interesting figures in Greek mythology, and continue to practice some skills that we actually began last week and are going to continue to hammer and practice often with the book Gift from the Gods. And so if you haven't already, make sure you tune into the video that's attached to this lesson for lesson 4, and it is regarding pages 20 to 22 from the book Gifts from the Gods, Ancient Words and Wisdom from Greek and Roman Mythology. Cool. Like I said, these are the pages we're reading, 20 and 22. The video was connected to that, so if you haven't read it yourself, when I have the file sent out, then you can tune into the video, make sure you read that. And our goal today is going to be define words and phrases from a text using clues both inside and outside of the unknown word. So basically using our context clues to figure out the meaning of unknown words. And I know I talked about this in the last lesson that we did with this book. The reason why it's so important to figure out new words is because there's a lot of different ways to learn new words. You can use vocabulary, but the absolute best way to learn new words is to use words that you already know, because that way they're already connected to stuff that you do know. So, and the more words that you know, the more words you know, which means the more words that you already know, it's going to be easier to figure out new words because you can use the words you already have in your vocabulary to figure out those new words, even if they're really challenging. And so that's our goal today, is to just practice and learn some more ways to discover the meaning of some unknown words so we become better readers and thinkers. So, by the end of the lesson today, we are going to define this word, course, that's on page 20, and explain how we use the clues inside and outside the word to figure out the meaning. That'll be our exit ticket. And just as a heads up, our thinking questions today are going to be a lot of just practicing doing this. Sometimes I know our thinking questions lead up to the exit ticket, but today they're just going to be practices on different words. They're not going to lead up, but they'll give us a lot of practice doing the same thing. So when we go and do it for exit ticket, we should be really solid. Awesome. Let's do a vocabulary really quickly. The first word is destiny. It's a noun that means what must happen to someone because of fate or luck. So this word destiny basically means that our lives are set in stone, that they were already predetermined before we were born, that our lives are going to go into a certain way, or someone's life is going to go into a certain way, and that it's unavoidable, that we can't change that outcome. So that's what destiny is. And lots of good stories are told about this debate or balance of whether all our lives are destiny or do we make our own destiny, and so on and so forth. The second word is rife, which means full of. That's what it means. If something is someone who has got a very full fridge at this moment and stocked up on food, it says their fridge is rife with food. The third word is influence, which means to affect. So anytime something or someone is affecting someone else, it has an influence. Your friends has an influence on you on what you decide to do with your time. Your parents have an influence on you when they shape the choices that you can make. That's what influence means. And then the last word is distaff, which is a staff with one cleft end to hold the material from which thread is drawn in spinning by hand or on a spinning wheel. And so that word, you'll see the picture of the fates, and in their picture, one of them, Clotho, is holding the distaff. It's something that is not used as much anymore because we don't do as much weaving as we used to, and by we I mean humans, but it is important to know that word so that you can know what the fate is doing. Let's get our brain started. Today's text tells us about fate, the idea that people's path in lives are determined in advance. Do you think people decide their own future, or is our path determined in advance? This is an incredibly deep question that philosophers have been debating for thousands and thousands of years. So you can pause the video, give your answer, and when you're done, come on back. And there is no right or wrong answer here. It's what you believe. If you think our lives are completely determined ahead of time in advance, that's wonderful. If you think that we have control over our lives and we can decide what our own future is, that's awesome too. And then if you're somewhere in the middle where you think maybe some things are planned out and then we're given some leeway in the middle, that's fine as well. There's no, based on evidence of human history, there's no concrete answer to this question. Awesome. So before we dive into our thinking questions and our exit ticket, we're going to do just a quick review of user and context clues, and then we're going to dive into one specific way to use your context clues. And so this is a presentation. If you've done lesson number 3, you've already seen most of it, but there's a bit I'm going to add on to the end. I'm just going to tag on or go quickly through this first part to remind you of what context clues are, and then dive in. So again, we're finding or inferring, making smart guesses about the meaning of words by using our context clues. Context clues are details inside and outside of a word that can help us infer the meaning. And the word infer, we know, means to make a smart guess. And so again, we're just using details that are inside a word and sometimes outside of the word to help us figure out what that word means. We can't always know for sure, so that's why we say we're making a smart guess based on the words that we're reading inside and outside of it. There's basically 3 ways to help you figure out what a word means. You can look inside the word. So again, the example I used last time, when its owners raised their voice, the dog ran fearfully under the table. We see the word fear, we see the word full, so that probably the word fearfully means full of fear, using the word inside of it to help you understand. When we did lesson number 3, and forgetting now which story it was for lesson 3, but a lot of these lessons that we're going to be doing are going to see that the words inside of the word are connected to the names of the god. Oh, it's hypnos. So we saw the word hypnotize. That word hypno was inside of it, which is the Greek god that can now use anything. Anytime you see hypnosis or hypno anything, you can probably guess it has something to do with falling asleep. And that's why learning more is important. Cool. You can look at clues around the word. This is probably the one we're using the most. The brave fireman was hacking at the door with an axe trying to break it down. We can guess that hacking probably means hitting or striking because that is what a fireman would do with an axe when he was trying to break something down. And then last, you can use the whole story of around a word to help you understand what it means. For example, the linebacker made a truly Herculean effort to tackle the runner before he got into the end zone. We know this situation. We've seen it plenty of times on TV. A linebacker, football player trying to tackle somebody. We know that has to be very strong. And then in the story of Hercules, Herculean, you're looking inside the word again, is someone who's very, very strong. So that means the effort that the linebacker gave was probably a very strong, brave effort. And so it's using a whole story of both the small story of what's being told and also the story of Hercules to figure out what that words mean from another story. Now, today, you'll see that for most of the words that we're trying to figure out, we're actually going to be looking around the word and using something very specific, and that's called using opposites. A lot of times when authors are trying to describe something, they'll list what it is compared to something else, usually showing it's the opposite. Here's an example. While Samaj is very outgoing, his brother is very reclusive. Right? And so here, this word while says while Samaj, that means that it's going to say something about Samaj, his brother. That word while tells us going to be something that's different. And you might see that with the word but too. You can see like Samaj is very outgoing, but his brother is very reclusive. That tells us that we're being told about 2 things and that they're opposites. Okay? And so these are the opposites that we're seeing. The word outgoing and the word reclusive. Okay? Samaj is very outgoing. That's describing Samaj. And then we see his brother is very reclusive. So both of these words are describing the brothers and how they are, and we can guess that they are probably the opposites. It'd be if this word while wasn't here and it was just Samaj is very outgoing, his brother is very reclusive, it'd be hard to tell if the author was describing something that was opposite or not. It could just be describing both brothers, and these words wouldn't be connected. But this word while, that tells us that these words are connected by being opposite. And so we use, just like we do in our other strategies, use what we already know. We know that the word outgoing is someone who likes to talk to people, meet others, and is not shy. And so since these are opposites, then reclusive must mean the opposite of that. Someone who does not like talking to others or who is shy. So when we're reading today, we're going to see a decent amount of this. Or when you've already read, you saw, and when we go into the actual examples today, you'll see a bunch of this, where the author is using opposites to describe, and then we can use the opposites to figure out the meaning of words we don't know. Wonderful. Let's dive in. And the first one is just a way to look even outside the text of the words, but look into the illustration to help us figure out what words are and what words mean. And so it will connect to our strategy, but not directly. So what clues does the author provide about the fates in the illustration on page 20 and 21? And so if you need to, check the text or go back and watch the video to find the illustration, and pause this video to take a moment to answer the question. And now that you're back, let's take a look. I'm going to go into camera mode so that you guys can see exactly what I'm looking at, what I'm thinking, and the notes that I made in my book, so that you can make similar notes if you think they're helpful. Okay. And I think the author is actually just giving us some very obvious clues about who these people are and what they do. And it connects directly to the text that they already told us about. We see three women here. One is spinning a thread out of, that's the distaff. Okay, a second one is looking at the thread and deciding what it is going to be. And then this one here, Tropus, is holding scissors, getting ready to cut it. And so I think the clues the author gives us is about what these three women are doing and their jobs. And then it connects right to the text here. Clotho, the youngest, spun a thread on her distaff that symbolized the life of the new person. While Clotho spun, the middle sister, Lecasis, decided if the new baby's life would be good or bad, blessed with wealth or rife with poverty, orderly or chaotic. And then the older sister, Atropos, cut the thread of life with sharp scissors. And those sharp scissors we see right there in the picture. And so I think the clues that the pictures give us are actually who the sisters are, the fates, and what their jobs are. So I'm going to be a little bit more specific, but start with that. The illustration gives us clues about the fates and their jobs when determining the life of soon to be born humans. Clotho spins their life, that's not a word, spins their life thread. I always forget the second one. Lachesis decides what kind of life they will live. And Atropos is waiting to cut the string to decide how long the life will be. We see all that in the picture. Right, and the reason we checked out those clues is because understanding who the fates are and what they are and what they do can help us figure out the meaning of these words as well. Excellent. Number 2 says, explain the meaning of the word chaotic on pages 20 and 21. Use clues inside and outside the text to help you understand the meaning of the word. Okay? So take a moment to do this now. And pause the video. And now that you're back, I'm going to go back into camera mode and show you how I figured out the meaning of the word chaotic. It's just going to look very similar to the example I gave in the lesson. Okay. The word chaotic is up here on page 21. I have it circled. Okay. And if we look, it's describing Clotho, the middle sister, Lachesis, decided if the new baby's life would be good or bad, blessed with wealth or rife with poverty, orderly or chaotic. And so we're seeing opposites being shown. And she's deciding if the new baby would be good or bad. Those are opposite. Blessed with wealth or rife with poverty. Wealth and poverty, those are opposites. Wealth having a lot of money, poverty not having enough money. And then orderly or chaotic. And so we're seeing again the author is describing using opposites. And so if we're trying to find the meaning of the word chaotic, we should look back at the word it's compared to, which is orderly. Now, if you don't already know what orderly means, you can look inside. Order, when something is in order, that means it's organized, it's in place, it's where it's supposed to be. And so something that's orderly is organized. Something that's orderly is neat, it's controlled. Okay? So then the word chaotic must mean the opposite of that. So something that is not neat is messy. Something that is not organized is disorganized. Something that is not in order is confusing. And so chaotic must mean something like messy, confused, or disorganized. And so that is what I shall answer. And those are the clues I use to find it. The word, and again, we're making this part guesses, so we're guessing what it means. I think the word chaotic means messy, confusing, or disorganized. I know this because in the text, one of these days I'm going to fix my fingers to type the cause correctly. That's because in the text, the author is comparing opposites like good and bad, and chaotic is the opposite of orderly. Orderly means put together and under control, so chaotic must mean the opposite of that. Great. Now, it seems like a long answer for a simple thing to figure out, but if you figured it out on your own, that's the kind of thinking that your brain did. It's actually really wonderful. Awesome. Last practice before we do this on our own. Take a look. It says explain the meaning of the word sturdy on pages 20 and 21. Use clues inside and outside the text to help you understand the meaning of the word. Okay. Just like before, pause the video, take some time to answer it on your own. And now that you're back, we go back into camera mode once again and show you where I found sturdy and how I figured out what it meant. So it's on the same section, page 21 here. It says, sometimes clothes spun a thread so sturdy that Atropos had a hard time cutting it. Now, looking right before, it said, the oldest sister Atropos cut the thread of life with sharp scissors, determining how long a person would live. Okay, and so it seems that Atropos is supposed to be cutting this thread, and the word sturdy is describing the thread. And so if she's trying to cut it, but she's having a hard time cutting it, I'm trying to think what I would call something that I'd have a hard time cutting. I might call it tough or durable. And so that word sturdy might mean tough or durable, because things that I would have a hard time cutting in my life, I would describe as that. I had a hard time cutting a lot of paper that's put together. It's tough. Might have a hard time cutting open the the plastic piece on a young kid's toy that's tied into. Those things are hard to cut, and I call them tough. And so sturdy must mean tough. Word, again, I want to go separate. Thank you. There we go. The word sturdy might mean tough because and man, A-U-S-E. In the text, it says, sometimes Clotho spun a thread so sturdy that Atropos had a hard time cutting it. When things are hard to break or cut, they are tough or durable. Right. And so to figure this one out, we didn't really use opposites like we did the last one. We actually probably use more of the whole story. We know the story of the fates is that Atropos is trying to cut the thread. If the thread won't be cut, it must be sturdy, so it must be tough. All right, cool. So we got some practice to figure out words. Last goal of the day is to define this word course. It's on page 20, and explain, again, this is the big one, is switch. I don't want you here, go away. Explain how you use clues inside and outside the word to figure out the meaning. Figuring out the word is great, but knowing how you did it is even better, because then you can use how you did it with other words as well. All right, so go ahead and pause the video to do this on your own. Now that you're back, I'm going to go into camera mode the second to last time and check it out. The word course, again, is over here on page 20. And if we look, some stamen, these are the cords, were made of fine linen, and others were made of ordinary wool. Some were fragile and some were tough. Some were soft and some were coarse. And so, again, the author is, adjusting the camera, sorry. The author is showing opposites here. Okay? It's talking about the thread of life, stamen, and describing it. Some were made of fine linen, but others were made of ordinary wool. Now, you might not know this, but fine linen is like silk, things that are very, very nice. And wool is the plainest of cloth that you can use. And so showing the opposite. If you didn't get that, at least you can see this next sentence. Some were, man, this is blurry, come on. Some were fragile and some were tough. Now, we know things that are fragile are easily broken, and that were tough. Tough does not easily break. And so, again, two opposites, and so this is probably an opposite once again. Some were soft and some were coarse. And so the opposite of the word, so since they're opposites, coarse must be the opposite of soft. The opposite of soft is hard, maybe rough. And so this word coarse probably means hard or rough, because it's the opposite of the word soft. I apologize for the blurriness of that, but I think with my sonorous voice, you're able to make sense of it. So let's respond that way. I think the word coarse means hard or rough. I think that because in the text, the author is describing people's stamen by using opposites. It says soft or coarse. Since the opposite of soft is hard or rough, that is what the word coarse must mean. Great. So again, I know a lot of us would typically just answer like this. The first sentence, I think the word coarse means rough, but then going on to explain how you're able to figure that out shows that you are using some really good thinking, and that you're using thinking that you can then use to figure out other words as well. And we're going to be doing lessons like this at least 2 more times, possibly even more, because this skill is so important. And the better you're getting at explaining how you can figure out words, the better you will be at this skill, and the more words you'll learn. And just like I said before, the more words you learn, the more words you learn. It's easy. I mean, it's not easy, but it's simple. So, hope you enjoyed the lesson. We got better at using our context clues to figure out the meaning of important words or new words. And we can do it by looking inside and outside of the words, using the whole story to figure out. And then specifically today, we can use opposites to help us figure out the meaning of a word if the author is using opposites to describe stuff. Okay? We will catch you at the next lesson. I hope you're enjoying Greek mythology. Goodbye.